I never thought I'd be disposable in my own family. That Wednesday afternoon changed everything. I had just returned from grocery shopping when I heard Melissa's voice from the living room. My son and daughter-in-law had been living in my home, rent-free for 3 years now. Something in her tone made me pause. "We need to start thinking about options for your mother," Melissa said. "This house is way too big for her." "She's not alone. We're here," Michael responded weakly. "For now," Melissa countered. "But let's not pretend she'll be around for long. My aunt's assisted living facility has openings. It would be better for everyone."
Comment where you're watching from. We'd love to see how far our stories are reaching.
I froze. The casual cruelty struck me like a physical blow. Not around for long? I was only 60, healthy and independent. "I don't know, Mel." Michael sounded uncertain. "Mom's still pretty active. Active enough to cook our meals and clean our laundry." Melissa laughed. "But once she's settled somewhere else, we'd have this whole house. We could finally renovate without worrying about disturbing her." My heart hammered. I had supported them through everything. Paid for Michael's college, helped with their wedding, and opened my home when they needed to get on their feet. And this was how they saw me? An inconvenience with an expiration date? "I guess we could bring it up over dinner sometime," Michael finally said. I quietly set down the eggs. My own son, who I had raised alone after Robert died when Michael was 12, was discussing shipping me off like a burden. That night at dinner, neither noticed my silence or trembling hands. I lay awake afterward, memories washing over me. The double shifts at the hospital, the vacations I'd skipped for Michael's summer programs, the retirement I'd delayed for his graduate school. All believing family took care of each other. By morning, something had hardened inside me. I'd spent my life putting others first. What had it gotten me? A front row seat to my own dismissal. I called my lawyer before breakfast and made an appointment. Then I prepared coffee and waited at the kitchen table. When both were seated, I said, "I've made a decision. I'm selling the house." Silence fell. Michael's toast froze midway to his mouth. "What?" he finally managed. "I'm selling the house," I repeated. "It's too big for me," as Melissa pointed out. "I've already spoken with a realtor." Melissa paled. "Sarah, Let's not pretend, Melissa," I said using her own words. "This house has become more your home than mine. But since I'll be around longer than expected, I need to make arrangements for my future, not just yours." "Mom, you can't just sell." Michael panicked. "Where would we go? We're not ready to buy yet. You have 3 months to find a place," I said calmly. 3 months? That's impossible." Melissa's voice rose. "I'm sure you'll figure something out," I replied. "You're both resourceful." "This is about what you overheard, isn't it?" Michael flushed. "Mom, Melissa didn't mean it like that." I looked him directly in the eyes. "Tell me exactly how suggesting." "I won't be around for long shows concern." He glanced at Melissa, who stared at her coffee. "I only meant," she began. "I know exactly what you meant," I interrupted. "I need to protect myself." "From us?" Michael looked wounded. "Mom, we're family." That word, family, hung between us. Once it had meant everything. "Yes, we are," I agreed quietly. "Which is why I assumed you wanted what was best for me, not just what was convenient for you." Melissa left abruptly. Michael pleaded, "Can we talk about this? There must be another solution." "I'm open to suggestions, but the house is going on the market next week." That afternoon, I signed the listing agreement. I felt lighter. The house had been our family home, filled with memories, but now it symbolized my diminishment. It was time to let go. When they returned that evening, tension filled the air. I heard them whispering urgently upstairs. They were plotting their next move, but so was I. And for once, I was steps ahead of them. The Replacement Part 2. The history, I didn't sleep much that night. Memories kept surfacing, moments that built the foundation of the life I thought I had. Robert and I bought this house 35 years ago when Michael was just a toddler. We'd saved for years, living in a cramped apartment, working opposite shifts so one of us could always be with our son. The day we got the keys, Robert picked Michael up and spun him around the empty living room. Our forever home, Robert had called it. Forever ended when Robert had a heart attack 15 years later. Michael was 12, suddenly without a father. I was 35, suddenly a widow with a mortgage, and a child to raise alone. I still remember sitting at our kitchen table that first night after the funeral, bills spread before me, wondering how I'd manage, but I did. I took extra shifts at the hospital, moved from part-time to full-time nursing, and kept our little family afloat. There were hard years. Times when I'd come home exhausted after a 12-hour shift to find Michael struggling with homework or teenage rebellion. Times when I'd sit in my car in the hospital parking lot, too tired to drive home, missing Robert with an ache that never fully disappeared. But we made it. Michael graduated high school, then college with my financial help. I was so proud watching him accept his diploma, the first in our family with a university degree. Then came Melissa. She was beautiful, confident, ambitious. Michael met her during his final year of graduate school. I still remember the first time he brought her home. She complimented everything, the house, my cooking, even my outdated decor. "You're so lucky to have such a beautiful home," she'd said, running her hand along the kitchen counter. "Michael tells me you've lived here for decades." "It's not fancy," I'd replied, "but it's home." "Oh, it has so much potential," she'd smiled. "Just imagine what you could do with it." I should have recognized the calculation behind her words. Instead, I was just happy Michael had found someone who made him smile again. Their wedding was small but elegant, stretching my savings to the limit. "It's the most important day of my life, Mom," Michael had pleaded when I expressed concerns about the cost. So I paid for the venue, the catering, the flowers, everything except her designer dress. 6 months after their honeymoon, they were at my door. The startup Michael worked for had downsized. Melissa's boutique job didn't pay enough for their rent. Could they stay with me temporarily? Just until they saved enough for a down payment? "Of course," I'd said without hesitation. "This is your home, too." That was 3 years ago. The changes were subtle at first. Melissa suggested rearranging the living room furniture, then repainting the kitchen. Soon my family photos were relegated to my bedroom, replaced by her minimalist art. My comfortable couch disappeared, swapped for a sleek sectional that hurt my back. My garden tools were moved because she needed the shed for her home gym that she used twice. I said nothing. I told myself sharing meant compromise. I worked my hospital shifts, volunteered at the community center, and tried to make myself scarce when I sensed Melissa's irritation at my presence. Michael changed too. He became distant, absorbed in his new life. Our Sunday morning breakfasts, a tradition since Robert died, gradually stopped. He forgot my birthday last year. When I mentioned it, he seemed genuinely surprised. Still, I made excuses for them both. They were young, building their life together. What a fool I'd been. The morning after my announcement about selling, I left early for my volunteer shift at the senior center. Gloria, my closest friend there, noticed something was off immediately. "Sarah, what's wrong? You've put War and Peace in the children's section." I tried to laugh, but it came out more like a sob. Before I knew it, I was telling her everything, the conversation I'd overheard, my decision to sell. Gloria listened, her weathered face growing harder with each detail. "Good for you," she said when I finished. "It's about time." "Time for what?" "Time you stopped being their doormat." She squeezed my hand. "Robert wouldn't have wanted this for you. He'd have wanted you to be valued, respected." The mention of Robert made my eyes sting. I just keep thinking where I went wrong with Michael. How did he become someone who would discuss putting his own mother in a home like I'm some problem to solve? Gloria shook her head. "You didn't go wrong. He did. And that wife of his certainly helped push him along." When I returned home that afternoon, the house was quiet. On the kitchen counter was a note in Michael's handwriting. "Mom, we need to talk. Melissa and I will be home for dinner." I crumpled the note. Of course they wanted to talk now that their free housing was threatened. I was setting the table when my phone rang. It was my realtor, Janet. "Sarah, I have good news. There's a couple very interested in seeing the house tomorrow. They're relocating for work and need to move quickly. Could we schedule a showing around noon?" My heart skipped. "Of course. Great, and remember, it's best if you're not home during showings." When I hung up, I noticed Michael standing in the doorway. "Who was that?" he asked, his voice carefully neutral. "My realtor," I replied. "There's a showing tomorrow at noon. You and Melissa should make yourselves scarce." His face reddened. "This is happening that fast?" "The market is good right now." I moved past him to check on the lasagna. "Mom, please, can we talk about this rationally?" I straightened and faced him. "I'm being perfectly rational, more rational than I've been in years." Is this really about what you overheard? Because Melissa was just what? I interrupted. Just planning my future without consulting me? Just assuming I'm decrepit at 60? Just eyeing my home as her inheritance while I'm still very much alive? Michael ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so like his father it momentarily caught me off guard. She didn't mean it like that, he insisted. I sighed. Then how did she mean it, Michael? He had no answer. Dinner that night was a battlefield disguised as a family meal. Melissa arrived home 30 minutes late, her smile too bright, her designer clothes too perfect for a simple weeknight at home. Sorry I'm late, she announced, setting her purse on the counter. Customers just wouldn't leave the boutique. I nodded, spooning lasagna onto plates without comment. Michael hovered nearby, tension radiating from him like heat. We ate in silence for several minutes before Melissa set down her fork with a deliberate clink. Sarah, she began, her voice honey-sweet. Michael told me about the house. I think there's been a misunderstanding. I took a sip of water. No misunderstanding. I'm selling the house, but why so suddenly? Her eyes widened with practiced concern. If there's a financial issue, we could help. Michael just got that promotion. This isn't about money, I interrupted. It's about respect. Melissa glanced at Michael, a silent exchange passing between them. Mom, Michael leaned forward. We have the utmost respect for you. You know that. Do I? I set my glass down carefully. Is that why you were discussing shipping me off to assisted living like I'm some inconvenient piece of furniture? Melissa's face flushed. You misunderstood. I was only suggesting. I understood perfectly, I said. You said, and I quote, let's not pretend she'll be around for long. Which part did I misunderstand, Melissa? The assumption that I'm dying soon or the eagerness to get me out of my own home? Michael shifted uncomfortably. Mom, it wasn't like that. Then what was it like? Explain it to me. I looked directly at him, challenging him to defend her words. He couldn't meet my eyes. Melissa changed tactics, her voice softening. Sarah, you've done so much for us. We only want what's best for you. No, I said quietly. You want what's best for you. There's a difference. That's unfair, Michael protested. We've talked about having you live with us when you're older. When exactly did we have that conversation? I asked, because I certainly wasn't part of it. Silence fell heavily across the table. You know what hurts the most? I continued, surprising myself with how steady my voice remained. Not that you want the house, it's that you didn't even consider me a person worth consulting about my own future. Michael had the decency to look ashamed, but Melissa's face hardened. With all due respect, Sarah, she said, dropping the sweet act, you're being dramatic. Many people your age start looking at retirement communities. I'm 60, not 90, I replied. And I'm not retiring. I volunteer, I garden, I have friends. I have a life. A life we've been helping you maintain, Melissa shot back. Who fixes things around here? Who handles the yard work? I laughed, genuinely surprised. You mean the yard work I pay the neighbor's son to do? Or the fixing Michael does when I practically beg him to look at a leaky faucet? Michael winced. We live here, Melissa said, her voice rising. We've made improvements. We've invested in this place. You've lived here rent-free for 3 years, I corrected. The improvements you made were for your comfort, not mine. You replaced my furniture, painted over colors Robert and I chose together, and rearranged my home to suit your taste. Not once did you ask what I wanted. We didn't think you cared, Michael said weakly. The words landed like a slap. You didn't think I cared about my own home, the home your father and I bought together, the home where you grew up? His silence was answer enough. Here's what's going to happen, I said, folding my napkin. The house will be shown tomorrow. If it sells quickly, which Janet believes it will, you'll need to find your own place. I've given you 3 months, which is generous considering you pay nothing to live here. And if we refuse to leave? Melissa challenged, her true colors finally showing. Michael looked horrified. Mel! I met her gaze calmly. Then I'll have to evict you, legally. You wouldn't, she gasped. Try me, I replied. I'm not the pushover you think I am. Melissa stood abruptly, her chair scraping the floor. This is how you treat family? After everything we've done for you? The audacity of her statement almost made me laugh. What exactly have you done for me, Melissa? Please enlighten me. We've kept you company, she sputtered. We've been here so you wouldn't be alone. I was never afraid of being alone, I said. I've been alone since Robert died. What I feared was being forgotten by my son. And it seems that's exactly what happened anyway. Michael flinched as if I'd struck him. Mom, please, he began, but I cut him off. I don't want to hear any more excuses. The decision is made. Melissa stormed off, muttering about ingratitude. Michael remained, shoulders slumped. Is there anything I can say to change your mind? He asked quietly. I studied my son, seeing both the man he'd become and the boy he'd been. Why didn't you stand up for me when she talked about me not being around for long? Why didn't you defend me? He looked down at his half-eaten meal. I don't know. I guess. I didn't want to rock the boat. Even when the boat was heading straight for an iceberg? I shook my head. That's not the man I raised you to be, Michael. I know, he whispered. I'm sorry. Sorry isn't enough, I said, standing to clear the table. Not this time. Later that night, I heard them arguing in their room, voices rising and falling like waves. I caught fragments. Melissa insisting they deserved the house, Michael suggesting they start looking for apartments, her accusing him of not standing up to me. I should have felt vindicated. Instead, I felt a deep sadness. This wasn't what I wanted for my son, but I couldn't protect him from his own choices anymore. The next morning, I left early for the showing, taking only my purse and a small album of family photos I couldn't bear to leave behind. As I backed out of the driveway, I saw Melissa watching. From the upstairs window, her expression unreadable. Something told me this battle was just beginning. The house sold in 8 days. The young couple who saw it that first afternoon fell in love with it immediately. They offered above asking price with a quick closing date. Janet called me at the community center, her voice bubbling with excitement. This is practically unheard of in today's market, she said. They want to close in 4 weeks. Is that too fast for you? No, I replied, ignoring the tightness in my chest. That's perfect. When I returned home that evening and shared the news, Michael's face paled. Melissa slammed her bedroom door and didn't emerge for hours. The next 3 weeks passed in a fog of paperwork, packing, and painful silence. I had already found a small 2-bedroom condo closer to the community center. It was modern, manageable, and most importantly, mine alone. Michael made awkward attempts at conversation, offering to help pack boxes or asking about my plans. Melissa barely spoke to me at all, treating me like an unwelcome intruder in what she clearly considered her home. Where are you going to put all this stuff? She asked one afternoon, gesturing to the boxes accumulating in the living room. Her tone suggested my belongings were unnecessary clutter. I've hired a storage unit for anything that won't fit in the condo, I replied. Don't worry, I won't be asking to store anything here. She gave me a tight smile. We're actually looking at a place in Brookside Gardens. The real estate agent thinks we have a good chance. Brookside Gardens was an upscale apartment complex, far more expensive than anything they could afford without my support. I said nothing, wondering where they'd suddenly found the money for such a place. 2 days before closing, I returned from a meeting with my financial advisor to find several of my boxes opened, contents disturbed. Michael, I called out, anger rising. What happened to these boxes? He appeared from the kitchen, looking guilty. Melissa was looking for the silver serving tray. She thought it might be in one of those. The silver serving tray that was a wedding gift from Robert's parents? That's been in my family for 40 years? He shifted uncomfortably. She wanted to use it for a dinner party she's planning. In the home you're supposedly moving out of in 2 days? I stared at him incredulously. About that, he hesitated. We need a little more time. The Brookside place fell through. Could we stay until the end of the month? I felt a surge of frustration. The new owners are moving in next week, Michael. I've been telling you this for weeks. I know, but something unexpected happened. He ran a hand through his hair. Melissa's hours got cut at the boutique. We don't have the deposit saved yet. I studied my son's face, seeing the manipulation behind his pleading eyes. Not his manipulation, hers. She was using him as a shield, knowing I'd have a harder time refusing him. No, I said firmly. I've given you 3 months' notice. The house is sold. You need to be out by Friday. His expression hardened. So that's it? You're just throwing us out? I'm holding you to the deadline I clearly established, I corrected. There's a difference. Later that night, I overheard them arguing again. She's being completely unreasonable. Melissa's voice carried through the walls. What did you expect? You went through her things. Michael shot back. It's just a stupid tray. Why can't she share anything? She's so selfish. I closed my bedroom door, blocking out their voices. The next morning, the silver serving tray was sitting on the kitchen counter, a small scratch marring its previously perfect surface. On moving day, the atmosphere was glacial. I had hired movers for my furniture and larger boxes. Michael and Melissa were conspicuously absent most of the day, returning only in the late afternoon as the last of my possessions were being loaded. So I guess this is it, Michael said, standing awkwardly in the nearly empty living room. Yes, I replied, checking my watch. The new owners get the keys tomorrow morning. Melissa surveyed the space, her expression calculating. What about our security deposit? I stared at her, momentarily speechless. What security deposit? You never paid one. We've been maintaining this place for years, she argued. That counts for something. Before I could respond, Michael grabbed her arm. Melissa, stop. Let's just go. She jerked away from him. No, your mother's making a fortune selling this house and we get nothing? After everything we've done? What exactly have you done? I asked, echoing our conversation from weeks earlier. Lived here rent-free? Criticized my decorating? Planned to? Put me in a home? You're never going to let that go, are you? She snapped. No, I said quietly. I'm not. Michael stepped between us. Mom, I'm sorry about all this. I know things haven't been great. An understatement so profound it was almost laughable. I hope you'll be happy in your new place, he continued. Maybe once we're settled, we could have dinner sometime? I looked at my son. Really looked at him. I saw the boy who once brought me dandelions from the yard, the teenager who cried on my shoulder after his first heartbreak, the young man who had once made me so proud. But I also saw the man who had sat silently while his wife discussed discarding. Me, who had chosen convenience over loyalty, who had never once defended me. I don't think so, Michael, I said finally. At least not for a while. His face fell. Mom, please, I need time, I interrupted. Space to figure out who I am without being taken for granted. Melissa tugged at his arm. Come on, Michael. She's made her choice. As they walked out the door, she turned back, her parting shot designed to wound. Don't expect us to take care of you when you actually do need help. You've made it clear family doesn't matter to you. The door closed behind them with a finality that echoed through the empty house. That night, in a hotel room surrounded by hastily packed suitcases, I cried for the first time since making my decision. Not because I regretted it, but because the family I thought I had was nothing but an illusion. The next morning, I handed the keys to Janet, who embraced me warmly. To new beginnings, she said. I smiled, though it felt stiff on my face. To new beginnings. The following weeks were a blur of unpacking and adjusting to my new space. Michael called twice. I let it go to voicemail both times. His messages were strained, awkward, filled with surface-level updates but no real substance. No apology. No acknowledgement of what had happened. Thanksgiving came and went without an invitation, then Christmas. My birthday in January passed unmarked except for a belated text message. Happy birthday, Mom. Hope you're doing well. The isolation stung, but not as much as I'd feared. I threw myself into volunteering, joined a book club at the community center, started taking watercolor classes. Slowly, I built a life that wasn't defined by being Michael's mother or Robert's widow, but by being Sarah, just Sarah. Gloria became a regular visitor to my condo, bringing homemade cookies and sharp observations about life. You look better, she commented one afternoon in February. More yourself. I feel better, I admitted. Lighter, somehow. That's what happens when you put down a burden you've been carrying too long, she said wisely. You remember how to stand up straight again. I hadn't heard from Michael in over a month when my phone rang one evening in March. It wasn't his number on the screen, but Melissa's. I stared at my phone, Melissa's name flashing on the screen. My finger hovered over the decline button, but curiosity won out. Hello, I answered cautiously. Sarah? Melissa's voice sounded different, strained, almost desperate. We need to talk. About what? I kept my tone neutral, bracing for manipulation. It's Michael. A pause. He's been in an accident. My heart stuttered. What happened? Is he all right? He was hit by a car while biking to work. He's at Memorial Hospital. Nothing's broken, but he has a concussion and some bad cuts. Her voice cracked slightly. The doctor wants him to rest for a week, but I can't take time off work. We can't afford it. I was hoping. There it was. The real reason for the call. You want me to help. I finished for her. He's your son, she said, as if that explained everything. After a moment's consideration, I replied, text me his room number. I'll be there in an hour. I hung up before she could respond. My hands trembled as I gathered my purse and keys. Despite everything, Michael was still my son. I couldn't ignore him when he was hurt. Memorial Hospital was where I'd worked for over 30 years. Walking through the familiar corridors felt like stepping back in time. Several former colleagues greeted me with surprise and warmth. Sarah, it's been ages, exclaimed Nancy, a nurse I'd trained years ago. Are you coming back to work with us? Just visiting, I explained. My son had an accident. Her face softened. Michael? I saw his name on the admissions list. Room 412. Thanks, Nancy. When I reached room 412, I paused in the doorway. Michael lay in the hospital bed, eyes closed, a large bandage on his forehead. Melissa sat beside him, scrolling through her phone. She looked up as I entered, relief crossing her face. You came, she said, standing quickly. I have to get to work. They wouldn't give me time off. Go ahead, I replied, setting my purse down. I'll stay with him. She hesitated, seeming unusually uncomfortable. The doctor said he needs to rest for at least a week. We're in a studio apartment now, and I work long hours. You want him to stay with me during his recovery? I stated flatly. Just until he's back on his feet, she nodded. It would only be temporary. I looked at my son, his face pale against the white hospital sheets. I'll see what Michael wants when he wakes up. Melissa grabbed her designer bag. Great, I've got to run. I'll call later. After she left, I settled into the chair beside Michael. The steady beep of the heart monitor filled the silence. I studied his face, seeing both the man he'd become and the boy he'd been. About 20 minutes later, Michael stirred, his eyes fluttering open. He seemed disoriented for a moment, then focused on me. Mom? His voice was hoarse. What are you doing here? Melissa called. Said you had an accident. He winced as he tried to sit up. My head feels like it's splitting open. Stay still, I advised. The doctor said you have a concussion. He laid back, closing his eyes briefly. I'm sorry. She bothered you. You're my son, Michael. Of course I came. A nurse entered with a clipboard. Good to see you awake, Mr. Winters. How's the pain on a scale of 1 to 10? About a 7, Michael grimaced. After checking his vitals and administering pain medication, the nurse left us alone again. An uncomfortable silence fell between us. How's the new place? Michael finally asked. It's nice, smaller but easier to manage. I hesitated. How are things with you? His laugh was bitter. Honestly, not great. The Brookside apartment fell through, so we took a studio downtown. It's all we could afford after Melissa's hours got cut. I nodded, not trusting myself to comment. And now this, he gestured to himself. The doctor says I can't work for at least a week. Melissa mentioned that. She suggested you might stay with me during your recovery. His expression darkened. Of course she did. Something in his tone made me pause. You don't want to? It's not that, he sighed. It's just, she has a way of making decisions without consulting me. Sound familiar? The irony wasn't lost on me. Like planning to put me in assisted living? He had the grace to look ashamed. Mom, about that, the door opened, and a middle-aged doctor entered, cutting off whatever Michael had been about to say. After examining Michael and explaining the discharge instructions, the doctor turned to me. Are you Mrs. Winters? Ms. Preston, I corrected. Sarah Preston, I'm Michael's mother. The doctor nodded. Good. I was concerned when his wife said she couldn't take time off. He shouldn't be alone for the next 48 hours, and he'll need someone to monitor his symptoms. I understand. I was a nurse here for 30 years. Excellent, he smiled. Then you know the drill. I'll have the discharge paperwork prepared. After the doctor left, Michael looked at me uncertainly. You don't have to do this. I know, I replied. But I will. 2 hours later, I was helping Michael into my condo. He moved slowly, clearly in pain despite the medication. Guest room is this way, I directed, guiding him down the short hallway. Bathroom's right across. Thanks, he murmured, easing himself onto the bed. For everything. You should rest, I said, turning to leave. Mom? His voice stopped me. Can we talk? Really talk? I hesitated, then sat on the edge of the bed. What about? He took a deep breath. I need to tell you something about Melissa. My guard went up immediately. Michael, please, just listen. He winced, touching his bandaged head. After you sold the house, things changed. Melissa was angry, really angry, really angry. She started talking about how you owed us, how the house should have gone to us. I remained silent, waiting. I realized she'd been planning it for years, waiting for you to either move out or, he trailed off, or die. I finished flatly. He nodded, looking miserable. When you overheard us that day, it wasn't the first time she'd brought it up. I just never took it seriously before. But you didn't stop her? I pointed out. I know. His voice cracked. I was weak. I let her manipulate me because it was easier than standing up to her. He reached for the water glass on the nightstand, his hand shaking slightly. There's more, he continued after taking a sip. The reason Melissa's hours got cut is that she was caught stealing from the boutique. Expensive jewelry. She's been doing it for months. I stared at him, stunned. Michael, I found them hidden in her vanity drawer. When I confronted her, she said it was because we needed money for the apartment deposit. His eyes met mine, filled with shame. But I think she's been doing it longer, maybe even when we were living with you. The revelation hit me like a physical blow. All those times small items had gone missing. My mother's pearl earrings, Robert's cufflinks, a gold bracelet I seldom wore. Did she take things from me? I asked, though I already knew the answer. I think so, he admitted. I'm so sorry, Mom. I've been such a fool. Before I could respond, my phone rang. It was Melissa. Is he settled in? She asked briskly, not bothering. With pleasantries? Yes, I replied, watching Michael's face. He's resting? Good. I'm working late, so I won't be able to check in until tomorrow. That's fine. As I hung up, Michael's expression was resolute. I'm filing for divorce, he said quietly, as soon as I'm recovered. I took his hand, feeling the weight of years between us. Are you sure? He nodded. I should have seen it sooner. She never loved me, just what she thought I could give her. I squeezed his hand, my heart aching for my son even as a small voice whispered, now he understands. 1 week turned into 2, then 3. Michael's physical recovery progressed steadily, but the emotional aftermath of his revelations left us both raw, navigating a changed relationship. Melissa called daily at first, her tone increasingly hostile when Michael wouldn't come to the phone. By the second week, she stopped calling altogether. She cleared out our bank account, Michael told me one morning as we shared coffee on my small balcony. Every penny we had saved. I wasn't surprised. What will you do? He stared into his cup. Start over, I guess. I've already filed the divorce papers. And where will you live? I asked carefully. He looked up, uncertainty in his eyes. I don't know. I can't afford much on my own right now. I considered his unspoken question. Having him stay permanently wasn't what I'd planned. I'd just reclaimed my independence, created a life that was finally my own. But the man sitting across from me wasn't the same one who had silently conspired with Melissa. This Michael was humbled, genuinely remorseful. The guest room is yours until you get back on your feet, I offered. But we need clear boundaries. Relief washed over his face. Of course. I'll pay rent, help with chores, whatever you need. It's not about money, I explained. It's about respect. My space, my rules, my life. I won't be taken for granted again. I understand, he nodded. And I'm sorry, Mom, for everything. Those words, sincere this time, were a start, but trust would take longer to rebuild. The doorbell rang one Saturday afternoon in April, interrupting our quiet routine. Michael opened it, then stepped back in shock. Melissa pushed past him into my living room, her face flushed with anger. So this is where you've been hiding, she spat, glaring at Michael. Playing house with Mommy while ignoring my calls? I stood from my reading chair. Melissa, you need to leave. She whirled on me. This is between me and my husband. Ex-husband, soon enough, Michael said quietly. You got the papers. You can't be serious. She laughed incredulously. Over a few missing pieces of jewelry. I did that for us. You did it for yourself, he corrected. Just like everything else. Her expression hardened as she turned back to me. This is your doing. You've poisoned him against me. I remained calm. You did that all on your own when you decided my home should be yours and I should be discarded. Let's not pretend you'll be around for long, she mimicked her own words. Cruel and deliberate. Honestly, at the rate you're going, that might still be true. You look terrible, Sarah. Michael stepped between us. That's enough, Melissa. Get out. Or what? She challenged. This isn't even your home. You're just a guest here, too. No, I interjected. He's family. You never were. Something in my tone must have resonated because she faltered, looking between us with new understanding. The dynamic had shifted. Her power was gone. You'll regret this, she warned Michael. Both of you will. After she stormed out, Michael sank onto the couch, head in his hands. I'm so sorry she came here. It's not your fault. I sat beside him. She showed her true colors. Again, he nodded slowly. I keep thinking about what you said, about her never being family. You're right. She never saw us that way. We were just opportunities. The weeks following Melissa's visit brought a gradual easing between Michael and me. We established routines, respecting each other's space. He found a new job with better hours, started therapy, began rebuilding his life with a humility I'd never seen in him before. I continued my volunteering, my classes, my friendships, the independent life I'd created. But now there were occasional shared meals, movie nights, conversations that went deeper than surface pleasantries. Summer arrived, bringing warm evenings perfect for sitting on the balcony. On one such evening, Michael joined me with 2 glasses of iced tea. I found an apartment, he announced, settling into the chair beside me. It's small, but affordable. I can move in next month. That's wonderful, I said, ignoring the slight pang I felt. I'd grown accustomed to his presence. Mom, he began hesitantly. These past few months living here, they've taught me so much about what I took for granted. All those years you supported me, and I never really saw it. I sipped my tea, letting him continue. I let Melissa manipulate me because it was easier than standing on my own 2 feet. Easier than admitting I wasn't the success I pretended to be. He looked out at the sunset. But I'm learning now, because of you. You're finding your way, I observed. That's all any parent wants for their child. Even after everything I did, he turned to me, vulnerability in his eyes. Especially then. I reached for his hand. That's when it matters most. The divorce was finalized in autumn. Michael moved into his apartment but came for Sunday dinners. Sometimes he brought a friend, occasionally a date. I watched him growing into the man I'd always hoped he'd become. Thoughtful, independent, kind. One Sunday in late November, almost a year after I'd sold the house, Michael arrived with a small wrapped package. What's this? I asked as he handed it to me. Open it, he encouraged. Inside was a silver serving tray, not the family heirloom Melissa had damaged, but a new one, beautifully engraved with my initials. I know it can't replace the original, he said, but I wanted you to have something that was yours alone, something no one could take. Tears pricked my eyes as I ran my fingers over the cool silver surface. It's perfect. That evening, after Michael left, I sat in my comfortable living room, thinking about the journey we'd taken, the pain of betrayal, the courage to stand alone, the slow, difficult work of rebuilding trust. I'd once believed family meant sacrifice at any cost. Now I understood true family required mutual respect. Michael and I were finding our way back to each other not because of obligation, but because we chose to, with clear eyes and honest hearts. My phone buzzed with a text from Gloria. Book club tomorrow? I smiled, typing back. Wouldn't miss it. At 61, my life was fuller than I'd ever imagined it could be. I had friends who valued me, a son who was learning to see me as a person with needs and desires of my own, and most importantly, I had myself, stronger and wiser for having walked through fire. I was no one's replacement, no one's afterthought. I was Sarah Preston, and I was exactly where I belonged.